Welcome, everybody. This is Matthew Gates with In the Building LA, your online source for news and information on the people, projects, and policies that are reshaping our community. I'm joined today by Anthony Jolly. Anthony is the owner of Hot and Cool Cafe, located right in the heart of Leimert Park at 4331 Degnan Boulevard. For those of you who haven't been, you should. It is one of the real epicenters of culture right here in the city right now. And so it's a pleasure and honor to have Anthony on with us today. How you doing, Anthony?
I'm good. Thanks for having me, Matthew. It's a pleasure to be here.
I appreciate it. We been trying to get you on for a minute. We actually had you on and had some technical difficulties, but I think it's maybe even a little bit better that we're doing it now. Before, when we talked, it was kind of right at the beginning of the COVID crisis, and now we've had a couple months to kind of absorb that, and also all of the things that I think are particularly relevant to you, your business, to Leimert Park, as related to obviously the economic and health fallout from COVID, but also the civil unrest related to the death of George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and really just the pushback on the kind of conditions that the community has been left in for 400 years. So that being said, I kind of wanted to start off for folks who aren't really aware and don't really know your story. How did Hot and Cool come to be? I think you have a pretty unique entrepreneurial journey. I know you've been in the business for a long time, so it's not definitely an overnight success. But how did Hot and Cool, how did you get to end up in Leimert Park?
You know, I've been in the coffee business for about 20 years, and I started in D.C. as a barista when Starbucks made their migration to the East Coast, early 2000s. Left the company, but met my wife, and she moved to Colorado to go to law school. I followed her. Started working for a company that worked exclusively in Ethiopia, doing post-harvest development techniques that raises the quality and capacity of coffee. So I interned with them for a year just to learn more about that industry, about that specific side of the industry at the farm level. After a year, they sent me to Ethiopia to source coffees. I was like a coffee hunter.
Wow.
And I lived there for a year, and I was hunting and acquiring some gems out of Ethiopia. I broke off from that company, and 2 years after waiting my non-compete, I imported 20,000 pounds of coffee from a farm.
Wow.
And I started to sell to different coffee roasters in the specialty coffee marketplace. I saw what the roasters were getting per pound as far as their revenue from our projects, and so I decided to teach myself how to roast. The casualties, when doing that learning curve, I sold them to a neighboring Alcoholics Anonymous meeting. This is one meeting. Started at 7 a.m. It was 7 days a week. They drank about 100 pounds a week, or a month, 100 pounds a month. So they drink anything. So I sold them the casualties till I figured it out.
Okay.
From Colorado, my wife's from San Jose. We had our first kid and decided we needed some help. Instead of going back to Washington, D.C., I moved to San Jose just to taste California. At that time, there was a specialty coffee conference in Seattle, and I went up there. I just imported a project. It's a female-owned farm, 50 acres, 100-year-old coffee trees. First time ever in America, so we bought like 25,000 pounds. That coffee we serve today. I went to Seattle to try to sell it. When I was getting my rental car, there was another brother there, and he was like, "What you doing up here?" And I know blacks up here at this convention. I was like, "I'm one. I'm a coffee guy." So he told me about his friend who was in LA that wanted to open up a coffee shop. So he gave me his number. I drove down from San Jose, met him a couple of times, and he took me to Leimert Park. And I was like, "Oh no!"
What year was this?
2000. Where are we? 16.
Okay. Yeah.
So it was meth encampments in the back. It was desolate. But you know, I went back to San Jose, called my mentor. He told me that I need to do it, and I need to be a representative of an African American in our African American community, specializing in a job that you don't see us in, which is specialty coffee, to be an example.
Yeah.
So I did it.
Hot and Cool almost serves as like an incubator. You have several local Black vendors who provide food and merchandise. You have a bunch of folks who do stuff, I believe, on consignment. And so the question is, when you were spending time in Ethiopia, did that shape or influence your business model, or is that something you always knew you wanted to do, that you always wanted to work and put other Black businesses on?
Well, it's beautiful being in an all-Black country. I mean, being from DC, I was used to Black entrepreneurship. Um, my father still has a trash removal company that was passed down from his dad, and most of, the people that we hung around were entrepreneurs. Being around Black business was a norm growing up.
Mm.
Being in Africa was great to be a nation with just done nothing with Black people, and everywhere you go, there was Black business. That was a great experience. So it was easy for me to kind of collaborate. And East Coast business is different. Like East Coast businesses, people collaborate. You got the hot dogs, I got the buns. Let's go.
Right.
Out in California is a little different. Being like, it was founded through the search of gold. And so once you get what you have, that's yours. And then LA was extremely different because it's Hollywood. So it's a lot of individualism of people wanting to be, so-called the person that's doing things. But in DC, we don't want to be highlighted and high profile. We want to just do work and grind and grow. So, it's growing up in Washington, D.C. established that social economic kind of philosophy that I had.
Got it. And so now you're in Leimert Park, you're in LA, a different, to your point, a different like networking culture, a different commercial culture. The way that entrepreneurs move out here is decidedly different than other parts of the country for the reasons that you laid out. But even with that, you've been able to cultivate a really deep and wide collective of entrepreneurs that interact with you on a business level of a wide cross section of creatives who come and frequent your restaurant just as patrons. How have you been able to kind of like, I don't know, how have you been able to carve out that space and maybe plant your flag in the ground and let folks know that this is what Hot and Cool is about, and kind of creating maybe that DC culture inside of Leimert Park?
It took me a while to kind of understand LA and, Black LA. It's been an uphill battle, I guess, its existence, being only 9% of the population and redlining and police brutality. So it's kind of like, there's a lot of trauma, so to speak, and there's not a lot of opportunity on the whole scheme of like what Los Angeles has to offer, So since I had the ability to do this, I wanted to open my doors and give other people a shot to take advantage of the platform to grow their platform. I worked my butt off, but while working, there have been people that come into my life to support that hard work, and so I want to do the same. That was my idea. So, having an open marketplace in a coffee shop just made sense. And on a business move, it just made sense to actually offer other things other than coffee. Other people with their brands, their followers will come into the shop. They can, and that purchase that comes into Hot and Cool can roll over to the Black merchant that I'm working with, but also introduce their customers to Hot and Cool.
So there's value to the selflessness, right?
Absolutely.
And so over the last couple of years, obviously the space has grown in popularity. Um, then COVID comes along, all that changes. You adjust your business model, and then we get to George Floyd and the civil unrest and the anxiety that folks feel and the need to make sure our voices are heard. And Leimert Park, as it has always done, kind of becomes the centerpiece of that in LA, right? And by way of that, hot and cool, it becomes part of that move. As events were unfolding, was that something that you collaborated with other business owners to make sure that Leimert Park was ended up being the epicenter for that, or was that just something that because you were there, you just put your elbow grease in along with the elbow grease of other entrepreneurs and to make sure that it came off correctly?
I think it was about being present. The entrepreneurs here in Leimert Park we were here. We were available to the community. And so when the unrest happens and, blacks wanted to be connected again and this movement happened, we were available. We made ourselves available. We didn't plan on opening until the end of July, but we worked things out to be available to the community. I think, a month ago, I worked on Juneteenth with Black Arts LA for the last 4 years, and this year I was determined to do it. So because of this, I knew we needed to come together more than anything to celebrate ourselves and begin to repair ourselves and not start with somebody else giving us something and call that reparations, but repair ourselves. So I decided to take a little money that came from relief and we threw a Juneteenth Festival. That was that was my give back. We wanted to bring in the youth and bring in all the generations to come in and express themselves through art. And what happened that day is like South Central gave each other a big hug. I think we had like 5,000 people come through our Leimert Park Village on Juneteenth. So many people come to help and so many resources. Um, when we looked up, there was a 60-person volunteer list. There was 7 people on the organization committee. Um, we went from like renting 1 stage to 3 stages because everybody wanted to be involved and be connected. And in my heart, we had to do it. We had to take, Juneteenth and label it Black Independence Day. That's what this shirt says right here. You know what I'm saying? It's one of the shirts we did, and so we can strive for our own independence. We can strive to repair ourselves. I think almost $600,000 went through Degnan that day. Yo, it was
Great.
incense guys were like, I sold $2,500 in incense.
Wow.
Vendors was like, I sold $10,000 in shirts.
Yeah.
People were selling out. 80% of the vendors sold out
Yeah.
on that day on this one block. We took care of ourselves. And when it was over, 2,000 people brushed their hands and they walked away. No violence, no situations. And somebody said that nobody spoke and nobody gave a speech. But, the healing came through the art that day. The healing came through the performers. The healing came through just being there. Luckily, the city was behind us. Once they found out what was happening, they came in to assist. We did everything by the rules. We had a floor plan. We had fire lanes. We had 14 security guards throughout. We had followed all procedures. It was a risk because of COVID, but love prevailed because it was a beautiful, beautiful moment. I think love is undefeated. Despite what we see from this pandemic, love is healing. Love is undefeated. And that day, those who came out, they were proud to be black. And instead of rallying and protesting, they just loved on each other.
Yeah. So my wife and I hadn't really been out a ton because she has asthma. and
I
so
understand.
obviously being high risk, right, we're a little more cautious. Um,
Yeah.
but all the emotions of the 2 weeks before that, we were like, you know what, we're gonna drive by Leimert Park and check out the Juneteenth Festival. And I spent some time in the DC area, spent a little time in the Atlanta area. And so when you're in those spaces, especially like DC, like in the summer, every weekend there's a black festival or something, right? Black
Yeah.
barbecue, and so it's just kind of the norm. And as long as I've been in LA, 20 plus years, 30 years, like that hasn't really existed, right? Juneteenth has never been a thing here to the level that it was on that day, right? And it was
No.
it was the convergence of all these different things that folks are dealing with, being cooped up in the house for 3 months, dealing with the emotions of the civil unrest, feeling a certain pride in black identity and black culture and wanting to express that. All of those things came together that day. So to me, it was a beautiful experience. It was a beautiful vibe and energy out there. I thought it was fantastic, and so we appreciate you and the other owners for making that happen. And hopefully, this is the springboard for things moving forward. Um, so when you think about group economics and your business model is really based around that, what is the benefit? What's the value add? Why would I, as an entrepreneur, take that particular path, particularly in an environment like you mentioned in LA, where we're used to being solopreneurs, right? What's the advantage to building with others?
I got this philosophy that, what's for you is for you, and what's for me is for me. And if what we all need to do is work really hard, but how do we crack open? What's the key to that success? And the key is not hoarding it and coveting it. The key is helping another person get what's for them. What happens is that most businesses, entrepreneurs, look at consumers as sheep, as they will just pile and go into one area and spend money and then won't come back to you. So you start chasing the same dollar, but that's not the case. It's 4 million people in LA. There's a 300 million people in this country, and like if you can collectively come together and have diverse products and partnership, you can capture more revenue with group economics than your sole proprietor programming, your one business model programming. And so what we do is we feel as though we're losing instead of gaining. I think we don't understand. We look to get liquid faster than build equity. Like, the equity of Hot and Cool has built. We're not liquidly. We haven't made no money, but our brand equity is huge.
Yeah.
You know,
You said something right there though that you mentioned in our first conversation that I want to end up on this. But you talked about not tapping into the equity right away. Could you unpack that a little bit? And like when we hear Tesla report that for 10 years they haven't turned a profit, conceptually we think that's okay. That makes sense, right? R&D, whatever. But when we think about it in a smaller scale, when we think about our own businesses, we don't conceive it the same way.
yeah, just like you just mentioned those corporations, and even Uber. Uber was $80 million in debt like last year, but yet they just got enough money to acquire Postmates. Um, I mean, we have to survive, and you need to be fluid to survive, no doubt. But brand and business equity can, as long as you can hold off without tapping in to it, it can increase substantially, and I think it increases beyond your understanding of your wealth. It's a different, like, liquid wealth is it's tangible and it's visible and it's defined and it's particular, and you can see it. You can see the numbers. You can see a comma or two if you're lucky, and you know what that is. But brand equity is something that wealth is kind of bigger than the number that you can equate. It allows you to leverage yourself and grow your business. And I'm not opposed to taking loans or investment to build. A lot of these companies, they start off. You have to start off with your own seed money. You build your brand equity with your own seed money. That second round of funding can not only grow the business but can sustain you. And that's the strategy of it. You can't look at projections and numbers and look to take out the value of your business, especially as a startup, in the initial 3 years. It's a race to build the equity of it, to make it worth something more than you put in, and then use that to put it back in. And we'll plan on what you put back in to extend growth to get another round of funding. You can go from starting something for $100,000 and then in 2 or 3 years, create brand equity that can speak and be soundly invested in with additional $400,000 after 3 years. People will look at that. The banks will look at that and say, okay, well, now here's $400,000, what you did with this amount and what you've created. And then you have a plan to expand, tap into your brand equity then, expand yourself then. And then by keeping yourself a salary, give yourself a raise as a CEO. And sacrifice. And that's one thing. Like my household, we don't eat out. I kind of wonder how people can come to Hot and Cool so much, but we don't eat out. We don't cars. You know what I'm saying? We're not spending in our lifestyle. We're being as frugal as possible. So, if there's an opportunity to sell our business, then we'll enjoy the fruits of the labor.
Yeah, no, I think that's it, man. Well, brother, you have a fan in me. Any way that I can use my platform moving forward as we grow to help you elevate yours, it's a phone call because I think that you figured it out. In the 20 plus years that I've been interacting in the business space, you're one of the sharper and innovative business minds that I've come across, man. And I appreciate you sharing your time with us today, and definitely look forward to seeing Hot and Cool and you personally continue to elevate moving forward in the years to come.
I appreciate it. You broke off a little bit, and thank you for being patient with me. I know you've been trying to get me on. It's always a pleasure to talk, and thank you for it. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it, brother.
Okay, brother.
Yeah, that concludes our interview with Anthony. Once again, my name is Matthew Gates. We're in the building, LA. Everybody stay safe, and we'll see you next time.